This is Linux in Laws, a podcast on topics around free and open source software, any associated contraband, communism, the revolution in general, and whatever else fancies your tickle. Please note that this and other episodes may contain strong language, offensive humor, and other certainly not politically correct language. You have been warned. Our parents insisted on this disclaimer. Happy, Mum? Thus, the content is not suitable for consumption in the workplace, especially when played back on a speaker in an open plan office or similar environments. Any minors under the age of 35 or any pets, including fluffy little killer bunnies, your trusted guide dog, unless on speed, and cute T-Rexes or other associated dinosaurs. Welcome to Linux in Laws, Season 2, Episode 18. Martin, how are things?
Yeah,
In
things
the
are
greater
fine.
universe, that is.
Things are fine. How are you?
Can't complain.
Good.
Now that the Brits have finally decided to conquer Europe once again, all I reckon is sorted. It's just a matter of London putting the money on the table to get this going. Brussels, if you're listening, that was a cue.
Don't know why, but anyway.
Martin, you're not alone. If there's any consolation.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Indeed.
this show is not about politics, but rather about open source. So without further ado, we would like to introduce Philip Kemmeter, who is a very important person at Check24. And with that, before I butcher this even further, Philip, over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks that I'm capable of being here, that you have invited me. Yeah, I'm Philip Kemmeter. I'm with Check24 for around 12 years now. I started as a developer there, part-time actually, and now I'm the CTO of the C24 Bank of the Check24 universe.
And before we lose even the rest of the audience, we should probably explain what Check24 is, both in the German, never mind European context.
Yeah. Okay. So Check24 is the comparison portal in Germany. So whenever you need to compare something in, let's say, energy prices or insurance coverage, then you can go to our platform and you will find the best suitable offer for you, and some additional stuff. But that's basically Check24 in a nutshell.
Would it be fair to say that actually Check24 is close to something called a monopoly in the German market? I mean, it seems to be predominant wherever you go, no? Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know there. I mean, Check24 is a platform which is competing in many markets because it's literally comparing anything. And there are specialist platforms in Germany already for special comparison. Let's put it like hotel or whatsoever. There are already platforms. So I would not say it's a monopoly. It's just a different way that you have so many specialized comparison pages combined to one platform. That's kind of unique.
And I should probably explain why Philip is actually on the show tonight, because Check24, like some other companies, is heavily involved in the FLOSS scene in Germany. They do host FLOSS events on a regular basis, for example, in places such as Frankfurt, as in Frankfurt, close to the Main River, that is. This is how I came across some of the Check24 development guys, or communities rather, who actually said that you're heavily using open source. And this is how this whole thing got into play. We couldn't have somebody more important on the show than actually the CTO.
I'm the CTO of the C24 Bank, right? So Check24 has a lot of verticals.
In that case, why don't we focus on the bank, and why don't you walk us through your open source usage?
Yeah, sure. So maybe a few words to the bank itself. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah, in order to get some context also, C24 is a neobank, so it's in the app actually. Everything is app based, and it's very, very modern. It has won a lot of prizes. It's very competitive in the market. Many not Check24 comparison pages rated us the best direct debit on the market. So I think we are doing some things right, and a lot of those things we are doing right is based on the technology we're using. I think that's introduction or kind of framing, which is useful to understand actually what we're doing. And in this context, our tech stack is based on a lot of code we do ourselves, and a lot of code we get from open source sources, and is combined from, I always say, we combine everything we find, and then put it together. And the glue we do ourselves, and for sure we do also business logic ourselves, but we don't do everything from scratch. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so effective or performant.
Interesting perspective. Given the fact, and this is not now a discussion about the banking sector in Germany, but rather about let's put it this way. If you call C24 a neobank, that puts you in competition with other startups like N26 and so forth in Germany, no?
Absolutely. We compete with the best in the market, and I think we are doing quite well.
Okay. Given the fact that, and let's keep this banking kind of angle to a minimum, but given the fact that N26 is actually just a marketing shell, my interpretation of the matter, which, for example, if you take out a consumer credit, you're pretty much talking to a different entity that N24 is outsourcing your deal to them. How do you, from a business perspective, how do you position yourself in terms of what is the USP that you provide going in that sector?
Yeah. Okay. So in order to, it's not one word actually to answer it. I'm sorry, but in order to answer it completely, also for people who do not know Check24 so well, Check24 is completely customer focused. So, and in the banking sector, this is actually not normal. So service oriented banking is not normal, and or not the standard. So when Check24 decided to do banking, it was crystal clear that this will be a service-oriented bank from minute one, and it will be 100% digital, because that's what we do. Actually, that's what we do great. And this is, I think, one of the important differences. I mean, there are a lot of features like everything important you need as a customer we build for you. But from the idea, everything we do is based on this service-oriented, customer-focused, and the rest is it doesn't matter. The rest is necessary maybe to fulfill this requirement, but not the other way around.
Okay, interesting. Because probably for the few people who do not live in Germany in our audience, banking, as in other countries, is a pretty competitive. Let's put it this way: is a pretty competitive market, not just with regards to the kind of established players like the Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank of the world, but rather you have these kind of startup incumbents, I'm almost tempted to say, that do try to disrupt the market. And if
that's what neobanking do, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's plenty of those
why
in
I
the UK
called
as well.
neobank. So no, I mean,
precisely it. Exactly.
yeah,
Like
but I
your
can also
Revolut
tell,
and whatever.
yeah, exactly. Revolut is doing a lot of things quite well. If you, for instance, look at the UI of the app, it's good. And I mean, many do good things. Others do not. It's like always in the market. New players are not always better than the old ones. But in our case, and also some others, I would say it's really worth trying, and you will see the difference not only between traditional banking, but also if you compare our approach of make the customer happy in banking to what the others actually do. And just a few examples, not to go too deep now in business and the product, but just a few examples. I mean, do you think that the interest rate your credit institute is paying to you does this feels fair? Yeah, that's, I mean, the first question I can tell you. We are one of the, does it feel like, that's exactly the interest rate I think is fair to get and it's fair to pay, and for us it's crystal clear. For the customer, I think we are maybe the only one. I don't know. I'm not the business guy, so I can't tell if others are also doing it this way. But most of the bankings I'm using just as a customer don't. That we do the difference that we say, okay, if we have interest rate, then this is for sure covered directly or has the bound directly to the interest rate of the state, Bundesbank. I don't know how it's called in English, Zentralleitzins.
Yeah, the German National Bank, who actually
the base rate, right?
Exactly, the base rate, exactly.
Yeah, the base rate. Okay, so it's fair is if when we have like kind of our share of interest, then the share should be always the same, right? That's kind of fair, and this share should be like in a fair amount. But if you look at different how other players in the market behaved when the base rate increased, they were not doing anything, but we were directly increasing our interest rate for the customer instantly, because that's fair, right? And that's what I mean. What customer focused means at the end. It doesn't mean like, okay, not only if you call me, I give you a call back, or for instance, if you send us an email, you get a reply within the same day. Our average is between 5 and 8 hours of response to service requests. That's also not normal, I would say. It's above average. And but it also means that we do for the customer, for you, a lot of things which actually in traditional banking nobody would do, because they want to make money, and this is their first interest, but that's not our first interest.
So if you're not in the business of making money, what's your priority?
What is your business?
I'm just asking.
No, I'm not saying that we are not need to make a stable company running, which also means that you have your income and your costs, that both needs to be in balance. But there's a difference between being transparent and fair and making money, or doing a rip-off. And we are 100% on the fair and transparent side of this. So that's what I want to say with this, and I had my experience with banking as a customer with different German credit institutes in different situations, which led to the conclusion for me personally to never do anything in banking business, because I actually, and now I'm in this banking business. I'm kind of surprised, but the only reason I do this project is I see that this is making a change. It makes a real change in the whole market, because we have the best product, because the best product for the customer, and we can afford it and make business with this approach, because we are kind of smarter maybe as the others, and have not smarter. Smarter, it's not fair, but we have a lot of advantage of experience, what it means to be 100% customer focused, 100% service oriented, and making money out of that. There are not a lot of companies, especially in Germany, who have understood this. I think that's it. And at the end, to get it back to a technology podcast, it's all about automation at the end.
Tackling the technical angle in a minute. Martin, I think we found the first communist neobank in Germany. Wouldn't you say so? Given the fact...
No, maybe it's just a typical startup, right? Where making money is not the first.
Okay. So communists after all. Okay,
it's not the one, and it's also not the other. No, we make money with it. It's no big deal, but in a fair rate. If you book a service, you pay for it, right? But does it feel fair? That's the question. And I'd say what we do is the fairest you can get.
No, absolutely. Jokes aside,
No, all good.
Phil. And going back to the technology angle just a bit, if I take a look at the end user license agreement of something called the ING app, which is probably fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fastest growing direct bank in Germany, and I've yet to read the statement from ING saying that mobile first is their focus. But if I understood this correctly, C24, not N24, but rather C24 positions itself as a very mobile-focused bank with regards to consumer contact. Now, if I take a look, as I said, and the ING licensing information, I see about 200,000, 25 open source licenses, which they have to mention because, I'm joking, kids, the actual number might be slightly smaller, which they have to mention because of licensing requirements. So coming back to the tech stack, how much open source, for example, do you use in your mobile app?
In the mobile app, we don't use. I'd say a lot. I actually don't know whether we do any of it, because the difference is in the mobile app, what we do there is, if you know the Check24 app, you might have noticed that it's quite, let's say it has quite a lot of features. So when we started to do our own app, C24 Bank, as with all the knowledge and so on we have from Check24, then we have like Check24 libraries in our tech stack, and there was no need to do any other libraries put there, and the rest we could write on our own because a lot of bank specific stuff, or it is licensed software which is not open source. For instance, the video ident is nothing you can do open source. I mean, there's
absolutely, yeah, understood.
So in the app, I would say nearly nothing.
Okay, so no Angular, no fancy web frameworks, nothing. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, we have Angular is a fair point. We have a little bit of it because we have, I think, 3 non-native pages in the whole app. Maybe 4. I really have to think about it. So yeah, but it's not. It's really a few. We focus there on the perfection in this app, which also leads to that we do not glue things together there, as I said at the beginning. This is more the backend stuff, because in the UI, the experience must be perfect. This is also why we do everything in native code, but those 4 pages.
No, it's interesting because the majority of the banks, and I know quite a lot of them, actually with their mobile apps, for example, they do heavily rely on open source frameworks such as Angular, such as JavaScript being the base and all the rest of it. And it's interesting because never mind. I mean, just asking because I didn't see anything on GitHub with regards to you contributing back to the community. So I reckon you are a fair consumer of open source, but I suppose that the technology panel is proprietary, but that's okay, no worries, because the open source initiative license in terms of definition of what is really an open source piece of software says you can do whatever you want with it as long as basically you observe the license requirements. So I reckon it's fair to say that you're consuming open source, yes, but the point that I'm making here is basically that none of your technology is basically out on GitHub because it's all proprietary. Fine. The thing that I'm trying to get at is basically, where do you see this going with regards to the way forward?
Yeah. So this is the app, right? I mean, to explain a little bit the tech stack is there's the app you have installed. Then there is some kind of connection server where you need to connect the app to. And then there starts a lot of different backend technologies and services. Yeah. So, and then there's databases, just very simple structure. And so in the app, that's the app. We have also the web app. For sure, the web app is not plain vanilla JavaScript. But speaking of how do we contribute to different open source projects, that's completely different way how we think about it. So for instance, our employees, they maybe one employee or the other, they love some open source project, and then they maybe bring it to the tech stack discussion, how to solve a problem, and then they contribute in order to make it better. Also, like to upstream, not only to us. But this is not done in the name of C24. It's done in the name of the person who did it. That's why it's not so visible.
Yeah, okay, so there's more down to the individual, you're saying. However,
Exactly. And we do, we do a lot of events like Hacktoberfest. We push a lot and all that because we
isn't that a beer festival?
yeah, the Hack
Yeah.
Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Hacktoberfest, yeah. You know it, right? You know Hacktoberfest. Don't tell me you don't know it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we always have this Hacktoberfest, and in Frankfurt we're actually hosting it, also pushing the others of Check24 sometimes a little bit more. Other verticals also do it, but some do not. And then we always say, come on, do something, because actually we want to push it, but we don't have like the capacity to do a structured approach in this. It's not our focus, but this doesn't mean that our inventions is not shared with public. It's just not shared as C24.
Yeah, fair enough. It's more okay. So you're using the open source component. You mentioned, for example, databases, right? So I'm assuming that'll be something like MySQL or Postgres for the backend of the app. However, so you're heavily relying on those technologies, right? So, in fact, your whole stack sounds like it's made up of open source technologies. So, do you at all liaise with those communities and make improvement suggestions, any pull requests, any fixes, bug fixes, things like that, right?
Yeah. So if so the tech stack, it's license free. A lot of it's license free, open source at the end. So yes, we have MySQL database, for instance. I think I also made one talk about it also, because many people think it's kind of strange to have MySQL in banking and not Oracle or whatsoever. But no, it's for us, it's like the perfect solution because we have so much knowledge in running MySQL cluster on premise, because we're doing this for decades. But the question was like whether we do, I don't know, give money to open source events or influence this in a way, or do our bug fixes to upstream. And the answer is yes, we do. We do a lot of that. Okay. Most of this is done by the Check24 group if it's organized. So it's not a vertical does it like the C24 Bank.
Right.
But then every year, for instance, we have an internal hackathon between good hackers whatsoever. We have like good programmers of all Check24 gather together, and then they have pre-tests, and at the end, and then the winner gets a lot of money in order to invest it into open source. So he's declaring the project, and then this project gets the money. So we do a lot of those gamification things in order to get open source running. And it's also the same what I said at the beginning. We do this a lot about the individual employees, because also when we do this event and say you get 24,000, because 24 Check24, you get 24,000 in order to invest it to an open source project of your choice. Then we do not say anything like it's important for us or whatsoever. It's like for the employee, it's his choice. And the idea behind it is at the end that the people working for us, they bring the ideas and they have to maintain everything and so on. So if they say this is a very good project and we should support it, then it's always a good idea. Period. We had a lot of contact with the old Zend community, which then became Laminas. We also had contact with the Laminas community because we were using it a lot before Symfony actually was standard. But this was actually it didn't work out that well. They had no real interest. They were not that organized in order to understand actually how we could support it, because actually we had high interest to have a lot of huge support, for instance, for Laminas framework, but this didn't work out. Just a few examples.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you presumably you're familiar with Zalando, right? They open source a lot of their code as well that they build, operators, all that kind of stuff, right? And so have you? What was the decision not to make parts of your, let's say, your own code publicly available?
And before we answer that, or before
Yeah.
before Philip answers that, basically we should probably explain what Zalando is. Is it fair to say, Philip, that Zalando is the biggest or the fastest growing retailer when it comes down to fashion and other items in Europe? Is that a fair assumption?
I don't know the numbers, but I feel the same.
And the reason, basically, I mean, they have a very, as Martin rightly mentioned, they have a very active open source community. They have DevRels, they have community managers, they have lots of repos on GitHub. So they are pretty open about giving back. And so with that, basically, let's let Philip answer the question.
Yeah. So the latter part I can confirm because we're also watching this for long. And it also is inspiring us a lot as Check24 as a whole. But especially for the C24 Bank, it's a little bit more complex because nearly everything we do in code is a secret. So from the security point of view, I mean, if you want to put it open source, it means you need to be sure that all the regulators and everything is compliant with this giving to the public. And that's not an easy process. So with the bank going open source is something different than Zalando, for instance, or Check24, which does projects like this also way more than C24 is capable of doing it.
Understood. But if you are sharing a great portion of the landscape with your mother company, namely Check24, I'm just wondering why there isn't a more active community engagement with Check24 as such, not just with the bank, but rather the group as such.
I cannot tell whether this is true or not because I don't know what a high involvement is defined by you, because I'd say the Check24 employees do a lot. We support them a lot. And the Check24 world has released a few services. I don't know the name currently of it, but for instance, there's one service which does the technology-wise, actually it gathers a lot of information and as a service caches it and pushes somewhere else. I don't recall the name now, but they do like complete service projects, put them open source completely. So they do things like this, and I would say not like Zalando, because as you say, there's no community manager. It's not Check24 organized with the label or whatsoever. But from the result, in order what we share to the community and how we are connected with the community, I think it's not a little, it's a much.
I mean, I didn't want to put you on the spot. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering.
All good. I just wanted also to understand.
Okay.
You know what is your definition? You know, for doing it massively or a little. So my feeling is we do a lot, and Zalando is maybe doing more. So
I mean, there's always more. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
now, I mean, you just mentioned the Zen's engine as a component.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that you're a PHP fanboy? I'm just wondering about your.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Well, okay. Okay. So I started with PHP 3. Okay. So
I thought I was old. Martin, did you hear that? She has started with PHP 3.
Yeah.
That makes it what, 65?
Oh, I can't remember that far back.
I started early.
Martin is what, 62? I'm 58.
Keep dreaming.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And
but I mean, Phil,
yeah.
you have kids, so I mean, you must be slightly older, I suppose. Rumor has it
I'm
on the word is
all
on the
good.
street that you're kind of 40 plus.
Yeah, I'm 41.
Okay, there you go.
I have 4 kids.
So
And
you
I
pick
started
PHP
very early to
exactly.
develop as
You
a kid.
you picked PHP up basically when you were still living with your parents
Exactly.
at the tender age of 6, I suppose.
No. When I started, I maybe I was between 12 and 15. I'm really so bad with those numbers and memories and years and
No,
stuff. But around this, when you know what love is and want to have a girlfriend and so on. In this time, I started with a friend together, a company for doing browser gaming, and we did it in PHP. And the reason was because we were able to develop already a little bit in different languages, and we did not be capable of doing anything in PHP, but it sounded kind of great in the community out there. So it was for us a challenge, like to learn a new language and have a project in order to do so. At the end, we founded a company together. Afterwards, I founded a different company with somebody else, which had the same idea, and it was still open source, not open source, sorry, still PHP. And then I came to Check24. Yeah, so which also was PHP position. Also, all my studies, professional studies in university and stuff everything was C++. And actually, I thought I would be a C++ developer in the future, but yeah, PHP was like always coming from the side, and tempting me, like, come on, that's the good side. Just do it. And yeah, so I did it for, I don't know, I'm now 41. So I stopped developing PHP, I'd say 5 years ago, approximately, when I switched to the bank, 5 years ago. So now you can calculate 20 or 25 years, something around that. I was developing PHP, yes.
Now, I mean, in fairness, we should probably shed some more light on that backfire joke. PHP was actually invented as Rasmus Ledov came up with the language in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So this is basically when PHP 1 saw the light of day.
Yeah.
And PHP 3, I reckon you're looking at early zeros in terms of early 2000s,
Yes.
give or take a few. So, no, Phil is not that old.
Yeah. I'm not that old. 2002, I left school in order to go to university. And this was then PHP 4 time, because I remember it so good, because it was for us, it was like incredible, something like objects we haven't seen before. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you see, changing just tack a little bit back to the business side, where do you see this whole banking thing going? If you can talk about this,
No, I can. I just wonder what to answer. You mean like national wide, global wide
no,
market,
take
or
your pick. I mean,
C24, or
no, I mean just before the Vogons land, and I mean, sorry,
yeah, exactly.
didn't want to put you in the spotlight. I mean, okay, let me paint the picture just a little bit in terms of being more concise about this question. Banking, to call banking being influenced by some disruptors rather, because there's more than one on the global scale, is probably slightly understating the issue. No, I mean, banking has seen a radical shift in the last 20 years. Because, I mean, I'm just taking Germany as an example, the number of branch closing is significantly. About a third of the tier 1 banks have closed. I reckon it's probably fair to say between 25 and almost 40% of their branches in the last 5 to 10 years. Direct banks are exploding in Germany, at least anyway. And I see this trend, at least in Europe, on a global scale anyway, in terms of a pan-European movement for especially the younger crowd, as in people below Philip's age, not moving, but rather basically their first point of contact with the banking world is actually through mobile and other direct banking technologies. So whereas their parents and grandparents went into branch to do business, they all do just online.
I'm totally with you. This is a radical change. Like the digital world actually is a radical change to any branch. But I mean, I can recall that I'd say 15 years ago. Yeah, it's around that because in I think 1990 ING launched. So approximately a little bit later, a friend of mine, he said like I'm switching. I'm now with ING, and I said you're really stupid. If you really have a problem, you have nobody to talk to. So I can go to the branch of the guy next door, and then I can kick ass, and then I get what I want. Yeah. And then a little bit later, he got a serious problem, and I was laughing at him. What do you do? And he was just calling there, and it was solved instantly. And I was kind of impressed. And when I had a little bit later a problem, I was in the branch, but they didn't like to help me because they were incompetent. So what I then learned is that this physical contact actually is not solving a problem. It just kind of feels like that. And my mother, she is too old to be digital in her own view. I'd say you're never too old to, but I'd say there is maybe a group of people who will not change. But there is the majority of people who step by step understand this and change. I mean, also the security concerns which were around also 90s and also the early 2000 years, where everybody was thinking I got like robbed because somebody knows my password and so on. I mean, it's more secure. Everything is more secure doing it digital now than doing it not digital. If you imagine one example I have with a different bank, I called the bank because I did the transaction wrongly. And I called there and I said, okay, I did this mistake. Is it already gone? Was it like instant payment, or can you like fish it out because it was a lot of money? And they said, yeah, okay, it's no problem. They fish it out. And then I said, okay, so how do you know it's me? Yeah. How do you know it's actually me on the phone? Yeah. And the question they asked me was like ridiculous. Everybody could answer, or many people could answer. Who know me a little. And as I do like podcasts and talk a lot, many people know those things. So I did not feel secure. But who has my digital signature from my phone, which is like in the vault of the phone? Nobody. And so from security aspect, it's something which is better. From usability, it's better. So it's the way to go. And one maybe last view on it, banking was always the technology revolutionists, always. But they stopped investing in this branch for some reason, I don't know. So that's why today it feels like they are the dinosaurs. The same with insurance. They invented all the computing stuff because they needed it to calculate things in no time. But
back in the 60s and 70s, exactly. I can recall it well.
Yeah. I wasn't born, but I have read it in the history books. So no, it's really interesting if you think about it. And if you think about how mainframes are still running and it's like keeping the whole payment system alive, but the people who know what actually mainframe is or are able to maintain it are literally dying because they are so old. And
indeed,
that's okay. We have Crystal.
Okay,
who maybe he might be dying at some stage too. But yes, my COBOL knowledge is a bit rusty.
Yeah. Okay, I like.
COBOL was a language actually I learned back in the 80s.
Cool. Well, I guess it was interesting experience to learn a language like this. But no, just kidding.
Alphabetic expression, exactly.
Yeah. Just kidding. I just want to say, I mean, there's so much legacy. If we want to talk about legacy code, there's so much legacy because the business is so old. The digital business is so old in finance sector. nowhere else it's like this old. And this is like so strange that they were not capable of investing strategically all the time in this branch, and now the big companies have to struggle so much, and are actually, I say, attackable by newcomers, if they would have invest more in IT before, and then maybe there were no neo banking because there were no need to do it because they have done this step themselves.
So I suppose the amount of COBOL code in C24's tech stack is close to zero.
It's literally zero, yes.
Over to you, Martin. Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, you mentioned a few things around the front end. What are the main open source projects that you rely on?
It's Angular, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Angular. It's in the front
Plain
end
and simple
sector. Yeah, quite plain and simple. Exactly like that. We do our Angular modules we build ourselves. If we need something, the Check24 has already built a lot of Angular modules, so we can grab some from them. And we as C24 Bank have no need actually to do, I don't know, consume any other modules, just the framework.
Playing devil's advocate now, with Angular, never mind TypeScript rather, and well, JavaScript being on the way out. What is your roadmap with regard to WASM? Especially from a mobile perspective. Okay. Why?
I always say we change tech stack when we need. We are always late adapters in new technology.
Okay.
So, it's like it's in two ways thinking. One is, if you have a technology, then you have to be bleeding edge with this technology. Like PHP, for sure, it's 8.3 and not 7.4, something like this. But to introduce a new technology, it's always expensive, and there needs to be a good reason. And the reason needs to be customer driven. So not like it's a good reason because I like it so much. It has to be a customer driven reason. And could be that the customer driven reason is our effectiveness is increasing a lot when we change this or that, because then we are developing faster and so on. And then it's also customer focus. But if none of those is a case, we are not introducing it. This is why we are late adapters on many things.
I reckon your main customer base is actually in Germany, I suppose.
Yeah. The main is in Germany. We also have international guests, I say. But as the app is not translated into English, so it's not many people who have a C24 account and are not from Germany.
I mean, in that case, your strategy does make sense because, as we all know, Germans on any given day have at least 4 or 5 smartphones, and you're not talking about low spec devices. In contrast to, say, Africa or South America, where the situation is slightly different, and there actually WASM is making a big entrance with regards to lower spec smartphones.
Absolutely.
Being actually usable with the tech stack.
Yeah.
But given the fact, if you're just playing the German market, good, because you don't need that approach, because everybody, as I said, has pretty high-powered devices.
Yeah, and it's also, if you from a security perspective, an old device is not able to have a physical vault. They just don't have it. So we also have some aspects we enforce the device to have. I actually don't know which Android version was supporting it, but like let's say it's Android 9, I don't know, then it's Android 9, and if you don't have it, then sorry, you can't be a customer. This is the way how we think about it. It's customer focused in this way because it's the best security you can get. And as you also say, in Germany, actually, for the people, it's affordable to have a device which is supporting all the security features, for instance.
So internally, is that what I'm hearing? You're relying on an Android feature called Safety Net?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I'm not an Android developer. That's why I have only passive knowledge on it, but this sounds totally like it.
No, I mean, fair enough. I mean, for the people who in the field of mobile development, SafetyNet is a feature that Google use, I think, with Android 11 or 10. Details may not be in the show notes. Essentially, the SafetyNet feature can tell you if you're running on a jailbroken phone in terms of if the bootloader has been unlocked, if there is a, let's put it this way, custom version of an OSP as an Android open source project, operating system, all the rest of it. So essentially, the SafetyNet it does what it's supposed to be, as in taking a stab or a gouge at your mobile environment and giving back to the application a percentage how it thinks the device has to be rated in terms of security level. And I know quite a few apps that simply say, sorry, for example, if the bootloader is unlocked, which is a very strong hint that you are not running your manufacturer's stock operating system, I won't work. So it's to function. From a security perspective, yes, it does probably make sense to some extent, but needless to say, probably not that many people put customized aftermarket operating systems on their mobile phones, so all good, I suppose. Martin, any thoughts on this? You being the mobile expert between the two of us.
Mobile expert, yeah, I don't use an Android personally.
There you go.
I did have another question on for Philip actually. Yeah, so because
That's a different fight. We can fight later.
Yeah, completely different different subject, or different from the mobile scenario. Yeah, so the typical argument around open source in
But I really wonder, sorry to interrupt you, I really wonder, use Android, don't use Android, but it's like you're fighting for open source. I don't get it, actually. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, just use Apple because they have a complete open source strategy in place anyway, so no sweat. Yeah. As Smart will be happy to tell you, exactly.
Well, no, they use open source components, just like Check24.
Yes, that's about it, exactly. So Mark, I didn't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So F-Droid is available also for iOS? No, just kidding. Oh, good.
That was a joke, exactly.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, so okay, you're heavily running open source, fine. How do you look at the support angle from your your CTO, right? So you're responsible for this whole stack. What do you do about typically software is bought with support, public value. So do you deal with that internally? Do you use external companies? How do you deal with the support angle for open source?
Actually, all I said. I mean, maybe I got the question wrong, but
production ceases to functions 1 a.m. in the morning. Everybody calls the CTO? Probably not.
Okay. So you mean I just don't get like what kind of support, like customer support or?
No. So bug fixes, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. How we do bug fixing? Okay, got it. So yeah, everybody is calling me for everything. No, just kidding. No, I mean we have Jira as a tool. I mean this may be for imagination good to know, and then for process wise, it's like this. You can at the end, if you as a customer send us information that you have a bug via app or you call us or whatsoever, there are some features where you can directly report a bug. Then it gets into like a queue. And then first level supporters are getting it and then bringing it into shape that at the end it's a ticket in Jira for developer to analyze it. And then the developer tries to get the same behavior on his local test environment in order to reproduce it, which is actually not so easy because in the banking, which is highly regulated, two things you cannot do. One is you cannot log in as the client in order to do it like 100% like he did it online. And the second thing is you cannot get all the data the user were using in order to reproduce, to rip whatever I wanted to say.
Yeah. I think the angle that Martin was getting at was probably actually, if you, after this triaging process, if you discover that an open source component that you're using has an issue, what do you do?
I got it. Now we are back to open source. Yeah, sorry, I was. Yeah, now I get it. What you mean? What we do is what we don't do is we do not fork it locally. We fix it on our side, and then the developer who did it, he does a pull request in the upstream way, or upstream repository. That's actually the process. And why we are doing this, it's actually also good for us because we don't want to maintain a local fork. For sure, it makes sense that this get merged into upstream. Then this bug fix is also available for us, including all features which come later. So it's our own interest, and on the other hand, we're also fighting for these bug fixes to understand and make it then also well accepted by the maintainer, and that's a lot of effort sometimes. But it's important for us actually because then, for sure, it's also good for others, and this also helps at the end everybody, which at the end helps yourself again. So I think when I was starting with Check24 in the energy department 12 years ago, we did a lot of forking of libraries. We had our own, actually at the end we had our own implementation of Smarty, if you remember this old library of Smarty. It was so hacked.
Yes.
It was so hacked from our side in order to fix so much security flaws we found that at the end it was just its own component. There was nothing which was compatible with the upstream repository. So this is something what I learned like 12 years ago, that this can't be the strategy. It's not good for anybody. So we are doing right, I would say, very strictly this way. If you have something, a library, and I mean, we also, if you think about open source, like open source for the global way, this is like check mark. But we have a lot of libraries which are created from the Check24 group, and there's the same. It's the same idea. Sometimes you also have a library which is created by your neighbor department in C24 Bank. Then you would do it also the same. So from the process, doesn't matter whether it's internal or external. You consume the library, you find a bug fix, you do a pull request upstream after you are sure this fix will work.
Yeah, so you're a heavily IT organization, right? So how big, how many people work in your IT department?
C24 Bank, it's
roughly
80, I'd say, approximately. Let's say 75 because it's better number. But yeah, I didn't count for long, so actually I don't know. But this is a good approximation. Yeah.
That makes it 50% of your workforce? Just wondering.
It's always, no, we have more employees in total.
I see.
Yeah. C24 is actually the same as Check24 from a ratio. So a third approximately is always IT. C24 has a little bit more because we do more on our own. Like Check24 has a lot of infrastructure which is available for the group, but it's not available for the bank because the infrastructure needs to be distinct due to security reasons. So we have a little bit more overhead in those platform things. Let's put it that way. We have our own app software-wise. We have our own firewall and network structure, infrastructure-wise, and so on. So our ratio is a little bit higher than a third, but yeah.
I totally get it, yeah, because the rest probably you can't talk about because this is quantum-based day trading, which wouldn't be regulated, so we won't touch on this. Before we wrap this up, is there anything that we should talk about before we end the show?
Everybody who has not an account with the C24 Bank did a big mistake here.
Get one now, exactly.
Yeah, get one now, and it's really easy. I really have to say it's really easy to just do it. You don't need to have this as your primary account. Doesn't matter for us, doesn't matter for you. Important is to just start with it, because also you can integrate all the other accounts into this app, and the app is awesome. So whether you use it just to have this debit account and use the debit account, or whether you just use it to get overview over all your other resources you have in different debit accounts or whatever accounts, just get the app and see how smooth everything works, and then you will figure out that slightly changing to us and making the transactions via our app with our cards and so on is much better than with others. It's an experience. You should not miss it. Now it feels like you're really early. In a year, you're just a late adapter. So.
And yes, Phil, if your marketing department wants to have further mentionings of C24 on the show, the email address that they should use is actually sponsor Linux right? So,
Good idea.
Just tell them to get in touch. Exactly, we'll sort out the details.
You started with the business part. I end with the marketing part.
Absolutely fine.
So how long have you been using it, Chris?
Come Saturday, probably 2 days.
Yeah, good. And what's your feeling? No, honest. Think it's good?
I will tell you in 2 days, because I have yet to register for the app. No, jokes aside, Phil, that has been more than interesting, especially the tech part. Before we wrap this up, there's always the POXes as the picks of the week. Martin normally covers, I think, mobile banking apps. Or entertainment websites, but not to worry about this. So if there's anything worth mentioning that you have come across, Phil, over the last 2 weeks, now is the time worth kind of pitching this, for one of a better expression.
Yeah. All right. So I saw a lot of the Rings, the extended edition. I have always the Blu-rays here in my shelf, and actually the only Blu-rays I have. I'm not a Blu-ray guy, because all my other infrastructure here, like the projector I have and so on, it's very old, so it doesn't matter. But those I bought like in perfect resolution, because I'm a lot of the Rings nerd, I'd say.
2 questions, honestly. What's your favorite character in Lord of the Rings, as in the complete series? And do the kids play along, I wonder? Are they also Lord of the Ring fans?
No. Okay, so first question first. I really like Aragorn. I like him. I also think it's very inspiring. And the second, no, the kids are still a little young in order to could see the movie and all the slaughtering. But my kids have now got through The Hobbit, not the movie, but the book, and they are not really catching so much. So they say, okay, it was nice and long, and okay, that's it now. And so I think you need a little bit of, let's say, life experience maybe to understand Lord of the Ring power. They need a while.
Yeah, what sort of age are they?
6 to 11.
Right, yeah.
11 is almost touching
11
it,
should
no?
be.
Yeah, 11 should be okay.
He said, like, in The Hobbit, when he read The Hobbit, was really funny. We was reading it with him together, and then he said, like, it's really boring, come on. And then
show them the
boring.
movie. Don't bother with the books. Word of advice. I don't know.
And then, like, a few days later, he had the book in his hand, and he was reading it like completely addicted.
Wow.
Which was really nice to see. I mean, it's a really big book, you know.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
And then we continued to read it with him together, and then all the others were listening, and then there were, there are the parts with the spiders and so on, which maybe for a 6-year-old is a little bit too creepy. So then it started to be a little bit complex, because all our kids, they share a room, and so when we read it loud, for one, all the others are listening. So it got a little bit complex to organize reading The Hobbit to the eldest one, but not to the others. When there is a part, which can't be read. So we always started together, and then we looked, okay, they are sleeping already or not? Okay, they are not sleeping. Okay, Peter, we need to change rooms. No, now it's getting creepy. But still, he has, I mean, The Hobbit, I mean, it's not that full of characters, so to say. There's Bilbo and that's it. And with Bilbo, to identify with Bilbo is maybe not so easy. Let's put it that way. It's like, yeah, and all the others are kind of even more strange than Bilbo.
Maybe.
Dwarves.
Exactly.
But but Gandalf maybe. But I also think Gandalf gets its old character, I mean, later, not in The Hobbit.
Well, it develops really in The Lord of the Rings as such as in the trilogy, so all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin, what's your pox, Martin?
My pox is a movie called The Snowman, which is a few years old, but I recently watched it. Based on a book by Norwegian writer Joe Nesbo, so kind of a bit of a psychological.
The
snowman is called Olaf, right?
I don't think he has a name. There's many different little snowmen.
Hang on,
definitely not for children.
Exactly. Isn't that the movie about the Mexican cartel? No.
It takes place in Norway. People
maybe
die
I'm mistaking things.
in
Okay, fair enough.
ways.
I see. Okay. So not for the faint-hearted. That's what I'm hearing.
No, it's not that graphical. But it's a good psychological story. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And my pox is actually a Star Wars spin-off. Has been released early June. It's called The Acolyte. It takes place, without giving too much away, it takes place about 100 years before Episode 1. It's about the Jedi discovering some mischievous elements. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to spoil the whole thing. If you're a Star Wars fan, you don't want to miss this. And with that, Phil, thank you very much for being part of the show.
Yes, thank you very much.
And exactly, and as I said, the email address is linuxelof.eu, just in case. And no, we're really looking forward to having you back on the show once you've achieved, similar to the Linux laws, world domination in the banking sector.
Yeah, for sure, makes sense. I thanks a lot for inviting me here to the show, although I know I'm unworthy.
You're not.
No.
But when I have the world dominance, then we meet again.
I mean, jokes aside, I mean, our gratitude, especially my gratitude, has to go out to Check24 for sponsoring such a beautiful series of open source events in Frankfurt, never mind the whole of Germany.
Thanks a lot for the thanks. You're welcome. We really like a lot having you there, and it's a great event. Actually, I also like it a lot.
This is the Linux in-laws.
You come for the knowledge,
but stay for the madness.
Thank you for listening.
This podcast is licensed under the latest version of the Creative Commons license, type Attribution Share Alike. Credits for the intro music go to Blue Sea Roosters for their song Solid Market, to Twin Flames for their piece called The Flow, used for the segment intros, and finally to Celestial Ground for their song Sweet Justice, used by the Dark Side. You find these and other ditties licensed under CC at Jamendo, a website dedicated to liberate the music industry from choking copyright legislation and other crap concepts.